Hello everyone, welcome. I'm going to talk about biodiversity in this video. So just to remind you again, biodiversity is the variety of life across all levels of biological organization. And hopefully you guys remember the levels of biological organization. We had talked about that a few times. So those are like atom, molecule, macromolecule, cell, tissue, organ system, and then it goes into organism, population, community, ecosystem, and then biosphere is the earth. And just to give you the definition again for species, it's a set of organisms that share unique characteristics, can breed, and produce a fertile offspring. So that's the definition for species. There is a three types of biodiversity: genetic, um, ecological, and species. So let's talk about that. So species diversity is the number of species or variety of species found in a region. And under species diversity, we have species richness and species evenness. Richness would be the number of species found, and evenness is how close the number of individuals for each species. For example, if you have 10 robins, 10 sparrows, 10 blue jays, that's high evenness. If you had one robin, one sparrow, 20 blue jays, that's low evenness. And then genetic diversity obviously has to do with the genes. So it includes differences in DNA composition among individuals. So here we have different genes for elephants, and there might be different differences in their DNA. So that would be genetic diversity. Here's species diversity, different kind of species there, number of species. And then we have ecosystem diversity. It's kind of going the other way around. It kind of went up. So ecosystem diversity refers to the number and variety of ecosystems or communities or habitats. So, for example, the variety of different terrestrial, forests and deserts, aquatic, marine, freshwater environments, highlighting differences in living, biotic, and non-living abiotic components like soil, water, and climate. So that's ecosystem diversity. And then biodiversity also varies based on the location, and the pattern is called latitudinal gradient and species richness. Species diversity increases or increases in there's an increase in species richness near the equator. So that's the equator. Near the equator, you have high diversity of the species. As you go further away, it's low. And there are the reasons. Some of the reasons are the greater geographic area. There's more solar energy. There's stability of tropical climates, lack of disruptive glacial events. So the temperatures are more stable here compared to very cold temperatures. And then also, species are more diverse if the habitat is more diverse. And ecotones. Ecotone is a transitional zone. This is a transitional zone between two different ecosystems or communities where they meet. For example, forest and grassland meet here. That's the ecotone zone. And for example, where a forest meets a meadow or freshwater meets saltwater, creating a unique habitat with a higher biodiversity because species from both areas overlap, offering a rich resources and movement for wildlife. An example of that would be the mangrove forest that has riparian zones, riverbanks, the edge where the desert meets the forest. So that's kind of showing you the mangrove forest organization here. So that creates a high diversity of the species. Also, structurally diverse habitats like forest are generally more biodiverse. And if you don't know what structurally diverse means, it means there's a richness in layers. For example, there's canopy, there's understory, there are shrubs, herbs, and dead wood, large trees, small trees that provides unique habitats, increasing overall species richness and ecosystem resilience. For example, if you were to compare coral reefs with the open ocean, coral reefs are going to be more diverse. So structurally diverse habitats create more niche or and resources, food, shelter, nesting sites, habitat, and microclimates, supporting a greater variety of species. So canopy dwelling birds do soil fungus. So some groups of organisms include more species than others. Insects are very diverse group compared to other vertebrates, other mollusca. So these are different protista bacteria. Um, there's a lot of bacterial species. So compared to some of the other groups, insects are very diverse. They are I'm trying to remember the number. So nearly, yeah. So I think it's 4%. So in comparison, vertebrates only make up 4%. Nearly two-thirds of the animals are insects. So they are very diverse. Here, what this picture is showing, you can see many bird species are at low latitudes, and there are few bird species at higher latitudes. So the reason for that is there's a stable climate near the equator, and there is less seasonal stress, supporting year-round food resources, breeding, and there is um, stable conditions that allow for specialization with evolving use of specific food or habitats. Um, and then higher elevations and latitudes often have small clutch sizes, potentially due to resource limitation and predation. And then also extremely cold, maybe seasonal food is not available. Food is not available all year round. It's only seasonal. So for that reason. So here in this picture, birds show a clear latitudinal gradient in species richness in the regions of Arctic, Canada, and Alaska. So that's just home to 30 uh, to 100 birds, number of birds breeding. And then at low latitudes in the areas like Costa Rica, Panama, they host more than 600 birds. So, our knowledge of species of numbers is incomplete for different reasons. So far, only 1.8 million species of plants, animals, and microorganisms are identified. And then the estimate for total number range from 3 to 100 million. So that's a big number. So the reason first is because why we, the reason for why we only know a few species, not all of them, why we haven't discovered everything. So the reason, one, many species are tiny and they're easily overlooked. For example, bacteria, fungus, protista, nematodes, roundworms, soil-dwelling arthropods like insects, spiders, and other invertebrates. Second, many organisms are difficult to identify. Sometimes organisms thought to be the same species, and when they closely examine them, they turn out to be different species. And then, so that usually happens with the microbes, fungus, and small insects. And sometimes with organisms that are large, that can happen too. So another reason would be the Earth remains a little, studied. We have barely sampled the ocean depth, hydrothermal vents, or tree canopies and soils of tropical forest. So there are many places on planet Earth that we need to explore. So our knowledge of species is incomplete because most of the unknown species are small, and other organisms may appear the same, but they found to be different when you examine them closely. So I'm going to so that's it for the biodiversity. I'll be recording a different lecture for the next portion.